From the MMA Unshow. What just happened?
What's up, MMA Unshow? Just Nick here, doing something a little different. We're going to try out some technical breakdowns, I guess, sort of main events. I'm taking the first one because Style Bender is a guy that I've been semi-obsessed with since before he came to the UFC. Just a really fun guy to break down. I'm more of a striking guy than a grappling guy, so I'll take this first assignment. So Adesanya Vettori 2. Like I said, I rewatched it. I'm going to go through my notes, try to keep this to 15 minutes or so, and just give you an idea of kind of what I think happened. I could probably watch this 100 times and give you 100 different responses. But this is my first go. So fighters in round one, both opening with a ton of feinting, and Marvin applying, I guess, what could be described as a strong linear pressure, not like wildly out of control linear pressure, but definitely trying to get moving in a direction. And that was sort of the story of the entire first round, was Marvin very linearly attacking with both punches and takedown attempts, and Adesanya showing him a lot of angles and showing him a lot of leg kicks. Adesanya opening in southpaw, I believe, and spent most of the round and most of the fight, for that matter, in southpaw. Marvin did manage to catch a kick, one of the low kicks, after absorbing probably 3 or 4 of them at 3:43 left in the first round, and does land the takedown. Izzy kind of scoots his way to the cage. Marvin, it looks like he's kind of attempting to stack, and then Israel does something really interesting where he throws up what almost looks like, and I don't know if it actually was an armbar attempt, but it looked sort of like an armbar attempt. So that was a really interesting way to get back up, and it appeared to give Vettori enough of something to think about that he was kind of able to like spin and get back to his feet. It was a very interesting way to get back to his feet. Only spent 45 seconds or so on the ground, so it's really difficult to score much there for Marvin other than the takedown itself, which isn't particularly high amplitude. Marvin definitely sought more takedown attempts, this time against the cage. Not really a lot of success there. And was trying to create boxing exchanges, but a lot of the time he was just too far out. And that was also kind of the story of the fight, is that Marvin just had a hard time figuring out the range. He did manage to get Adesanya to the cage, back to the cage a couple times in this round in particular, but Adesanya's head movement was just, he was just on. He was very on. Adesanya seems to hurt Vettori for the first time to the leg at 121, hit him with a really, really solid one. And all of the feinting was kind of just making Vettori have to have moments where he would stand still to throw, and it was at those moments that, pretty much without fail, Adesanya would kick that leg. Marvin Vettori did land a nice left hand towards the end of the round. He a lot of it was looping, and it gets progressively more looping throughout the fight, which is why I think less and less of particularly his left hands, weren't really finding a home. Towards the very end of the round, looks like about 41 seconds left, Adesanya lands what I thought was probably the sharpest head strike of the round. He was throwing, I call it a Conor McGregor combination. I'm sure it has a better name than that, but basically it's a 2 from southpaw, lead 2, where the shoulder comes forward first, almost acting as the jab. Which actually is his natural jab hand, so that it would make sense why he would throw it that way. And then kind of this like shoveling uppercut hook thing, which he went back to the well at and had a lot of success at. Vettori picked up on it towards the end of the fight, maybe 4 or 5, and was able to counter with right hands, but not a lot. Nothing really too heavy. One hook maybe in the 4th. Lands that same combo again. 10-9 Israel Adesanya, pretty easy in the first round. It's interesting to me how much Vettori was adamant that he, in his own corner, that despite his corner's suggestion that he thought that he had won the round. I don't know, the judges and I disagree with that. So, interesting moment there. I don't know if it means anything. It probably doesn't mean anything other than that Marvin's, and I'll talk more about this idea of kind of Marvin's delusion at the end. But interesting moment. Beginning of round 2, Izzy landed a glancing head kick from orthodox, which pretty much every time he was in orthodox, he was throwing a heavy round kick. Looks like it was about 437-ish of the first round, or excuse me, the second round. 430. When I'm saying the times, by the way, I'm going like the time stamp, not how far into it we are, but how much we have remaining. So if you're going to go back to watch these things that I'm talking about, that's the way to find them. Like I said, Marvin did have some success with the jab, but he's being countered sharply pretty much every time he's sticking it out there. Even though like I said, he's throwing the jab well. He's throwing it sharp. He's throwing it quick. He's getting his guard back. He's still getting countered. Adesanya is just a little quicker. Adesanya lands a leg kick basically the moment, like I said earlier, the moment that Marvin Vettori stops moving, and he's freezing him with feints throughout the first round, continuing into the second round. Vettori is deep on a double entry against the cage with about 3:17 or so left to go in the second round, and Adesanya gives him a different look this time going after elbows, and then is able to pretty easily escape that attempt against the cage. That I thought would be the easiest way for Marvin to get takedowns. Turned out to not be the case. He had zero success with any of the attempts that basically led to Adesanya's back against the cage. Adesanya was just grabbing an overhook on the far side, grabbing bicep control on the inside, and spinning. Really, really simple. Strikers getting into MMA, watch this. This is how you get out of this takedown attempt against the cage. Really, really good stuff. Basically, just scraping him off. Really smooth. Israel Adesanya had a beautiful moment at 1:33 of the second round where he feinted. I don't know if it was a knee or a high kick. Basically, just lifted his right leg up from orthodox. Of course, at this point, he's seen enough of these round kicks that Vettori kind of freezes to block. He steps all the way through, and normally he throws a left hand out of this combination, but I think probably because it was against a southpaw, that lead leg is there, and he just slammed a leg kick from southpaw. Again, not the story of the fight per se was the leg kicks, but it was the way that he was able to get to that leg in so many different ways that makes it so he's not just landing leg kicks, he's landing heavy, painful, damaging leg kicks. At this point, it sort of seemed like Marvin was just like resigned to the fact that he's going to get kicked in the leg for the rest of the fight, and that remained to be true. I don't remember him even attempting to check a leg kick after this point. He had kind of checked a couple before this, but at that point, he was just gonna take him, which sucks. That's a sucky place to be. Vettori enters on a double against the fence, and again, eats some elbows, and again, Adesanya exits with that same kind of far side overhook, near side bicep control, spins him out of there. Easy work. Adesanya had another interesting moment with 26 seconds left in the round. Heavy orthodox high kick into the guard. Not set up by anything. Just a moment for, in my opinion, for Israel Adesanya to say, I hit harder than you. I kick harder than you. And it really backed Vettori up. Despite the fact that Vettori blocked it, I'm telling you, getting kicked in the arms by a guy like Israel Adesanya sucks. Sucks balls. Not where Vettori wants to be. Important moment. And then he closed the round with another head kick, this time coming from southpaw. 2018, Adesanya pretty easy going into round 3. This was Vettori's almost moment. And I almost feel a little bad for him in hindsight, because this was the moment that he genuinely had a chance to end this fight had he done a couple things differently, and maybe had Adesanya not done a couple of things as well as he did. So Vettori shoots almost immediately from curry range, and actually just kind of, I think he surprised Adesanya that he shot A, as quickly as he did, and that B, that he still had like the power and the tenacity, which says something about Marvin Vettori, and not only in his physical ability, but also in his mental determination in this fight, which I was impressed by, man. That's an excellent response after getting kind of pieced up for 2 rounds. So he does get the takedown very early, and this time goes straight into half guard, and he's really high. I don't know if he was looking for maybe an arm triangle attempt, but he was very, very high up. Either, like I said, either looking for that or maybe trying to pass even into a side mount or some other more dominant position. There's an interesting moment here where Adesanya kind of hit bumps him up, which he found success with again later, which kind of knocks Vettori off balance, but he retained the position by beautifully holding onto that underhook and really just kind of riding that position. Really, really pretty jiu-jitsu here from Marvin Vettori, and manages to take the back, shoots for that. He kind of leans back, and At that moment, Adesanya ends up on his chest, and he's got both hooks in. I mean, this is not a great place to be if you're Israel Adesanya. And all of this happened really quickly. Marvin starts to, seek the rear naked choke, and Adesanya just timed it perfectly. He fought the hands well, which for whatever reason led to Vettori's hooks just kind of loosening. You have to kind of pause it, and I had to go through this several times to figure out exactly how he was able to turn around as easily as he was into Vettori's guard. And like I said, it did happen really quickly, but that was a dangerous moment. Had Adesanya not played that as well as he did, had he not shown his jiu-jitsu defense to be so strong, that could have been a hairy moment with a ton of time left on the round for Vettori to work. But no dice. Adesanya turns around in his guard, and this was the moment that Adesanya said in his press conference after the fight that he said, "I took your soul." And if you watch it back, you can see him talking to him at that moment. And it was also a weird moment for Vettori, where he was almost like, what do I have to do to have some success? And he was a sort of come to Jesus moment for him. It was interesting. I would be interested to hear his thoughts on that moment. I haven't heard him say anything about it, but it was a very short but very fascinating exchange. Izzy at that point content to stay in guard and land some big punches from guard, which I thought was interesting as well, that he seemed to be content staying in Marvin Vettori's guard. Vettori looks for a leg lock, nothing really there. Scrambles back to the feet. And then Israel actually lands that McGregor combo, is what I keep calling it, a couple more times. Vettori, like I said earlier, did have a counter for that once. Landed a nice little hook. I believe it was in this round. And then for the first time, I think Vettori's legs had been hurt previously, but this was the first time that he actually fell down from a leg kick. I believe there was maybe one. Maybe it did only happen once. I don't know whether Adesanya was credited with a knockdown or not, but definitely knocked him down. And was almost exclusively in southpaw at this point. So 30-27 Israel Adesanya, pretty easy going into round 4. Adesanya going a little more orthodox in 4 and 5, and I think, like I said earlier, that he's looking for that power shot. He's looking to get him out of there. He knows he's got a significant advantage, and then especially going into the 5th round, he just didn't fear anything that was coming back his way on the feet. And at that point, I don't even think he really feared anything in terms of a takedown. Israel had a beautiful moment at the very beginning of round 4, looks like about 4:50, where he throws a leg kick, freezes him for a sec, tries that McGregor combo, misses it. Like I said, I do think Vettori was kind of picking up on that, because that was, if there was one thing that he kept going back to the well to in a similar way, it was that combination lead, left hand, kind of shovel uppercut. Vettori sees it, ducks under it, looks for a single. Adesanya immediately, in the middle of the combination almost, snags the underhook, which leads directly into a 3-2 that lands flush. Two of the most flush punches of the fight, followed by another big leg kick, all in like a couple seconds. I mean, just to see both fighters, but particularly Adesanya's reactions in that kind of exchange was very interesting. Vettori worked a double entry into a clinch takedown with 336, but just didn't get anything out of it. Adesanya, off his back, uses the foot on the cage to kind of flip over and ends up on top again and back on the feet. Adesanya has another good moment at 249 where he lands a question mark kick from orthodox stance, steps all the way through to a low kick. Like I said earlier, he throws that a left hand off of that a lot of times. This time he threw the low kick. And the other thing that I noticed is at this point, Adesanya is firmly in the center of the cage for most of the exchanges, which is leading to more success, not less, and leading to Vettori standing still more. Tough 4th round for Marvin Vettori. Like I said, I do believe that he had some confidence, but there were moments where his face just didn't lie. It doesn't really matter what he says in the post fight. He just looked discouraged. Another big high kick from orthodox with about 55 seconds left into the round. This one was different. The story of the fight for me is this diversity. It's diversity on one side and predictability on the other side. And Adesanya shows it here again with that kind of like Bang Muay Thai style high kick, kind of almost like faking, not necessarily like a takedown attempt, but something low that lowers the guard, comes high, hurts him again. Definitely the most hurt, I believe, Vettori was in the fight. He looked to kind of wobble. And then Vettori ended up, this was another interesting moment, Vettori ended up back I think it was a single entry against the cage towards the end of the round. And this time, Adesanya showed him something different again. And he threatened some version of a front choke. Well, I don't know if it was a guillotine. I don't know if he was messing around with Darce or Anaconda hand positioning. I couldn't really tell what was going on. But now you got Vettori fighting hands and worried about Adesanya's choke attempt. I mean, the dude's ability to continue to throw new things at you in every phase of mixed martial arts, it just continues to evolve in a way that it's scary to watch. I don't know who beats this guy, and I don't know how they do it other than being much larger, apparently. Big Daddy yawn. Round 5, not as exciting. Vettori kind of trying to wrestle. Not a lot going on. Izzy kind of headhunting a little bit in the 5th round, which I think he would probably own up to him. He's up 4-0. Why not? Not a whole lot going on other than the interesting moment that Mark Goddard had to separate them, which I don't know. It's one of two things. Either Vettori thought he was doing better than the judges thought he was doing, or maybe Vittori's kind of looking for a moral victory here in the 5th round, which he did not find. Another easy 10-9 in the 5th round for Israel Adesanya. So some of my key takeaways for Izzy, like I said earlier, I could watch this 100 times and probably pick out 100 different things that I'm fascinated by, like his ability to use angles and have diversity, of course, in his striking, but now in his jiu-jitsu, now in his wrestling defense, now in his striking defense is evolving and changing and giving you new things. And he very specifically had a game plan for this, but his ability to kind of flow and react, it just keeps getting better and better. Like the difference between what he was able to do to Marvin in this fight versus the first fight, which I thought he did well in the first fight. He easily won the first fight. This was just a demo. Crazy. Head movement, particularly against the cage, as aforementioned. I got to think Marvin can sting a little bit. He's not a guy that puts people away on the feet, but he's a big old dude, and I got to think he's got some kind of heavy hands. And Izzy's reliance on the head movement, masterful. Definitely more than enough to avoid really ever taking anything even close to big from the hands of Marvin Vettori. I thought his meanness was on display in a way that you don't see guys that have the skill set. I mean, you don't see the guys that have the skill set of Israel Adesanya, period. But you definitely don't see guys that have the meanness and the willingness to continue to exchange and to stay in the pocket and to really want to hurt guys the way that Israel Adesanya does. And I was fascinated by that in this particular performance. And then finally, unpredictability in his movement, in his defense, in his offense. He just gives you so many different things to worry about. I've watched striking for a long time. It's something that I like. I mean, I love to break down and to watch repeatedly and try to figure out what guys are doing. And I've never seen anything like Israel Adesanya the way that he does it. It's just, I don't know, masterclass. For Marvin, like I said earlier, I think he can make kind of that delusion that he has into a benefit in the fact that he seems to not really get discouraged, which is a good thing to have. The problem is he needs to be a little more realistic with himself and where he's at in his career and realize that he needs to add layers and wrinkles to his game. He needs to learn from these defeats and figure out ways to get better and to add some unpredictability to his game. He's never going to be a power guy. He's never going to be Israel Adesanya, but he has a tremendous right hand. It's a very educated jab. It's a very educated right hook. And he really can wrestle. When you continue to show the same entries to a guy who's as good as Israel Adesanya is, he's going to figure it out. Plain and simple. So he had effective wrestling early in the fight, and basically as the fight went on, it got increasingly less effective because he kind of just kept doing the same thing. And for me, that is where I want to see Marvin Vettori work. I want to see him grow. He's a young fighter. Interestingly enough, I actually came out of this fight, despite the 50-45 defeat, I came out almost a little bit higher on Marvin Vettori than I was before the fight because he was resolute. He did keep trying to do things. He did keep trying to make stuff happen. And it would have been very, very easy for him to quit in that fight. He may not have shown that he was hurt, but I promise there were moments that he could have gotten himself out of there, and I don't think anybody would have blamed him. So kudos to both guys. Another masterclass from Adesanya. So excited to see the Whitaker rematch. That's definitely what's next. So we'll talk more about this on our regular episode this week. Thanks for checking this out. Hope you guys dig it. Give me some comments, feedback. Love to hear what you think. Tell me why I'm an idiot. Love you. Bye.